Hello, everyone. Today, welcome to another exciting edition of the Gaming and Leisure Voice episode, whatever we have for a number. We're going to be talking with Scott Robbins of EPS today. But first, a little from our sponsor, SSI POS. If you're looking for a POS partner that offers all in-house services, including development and 24/7, 365 domestic support, look no further than Signature Systems. Home of SSI POS, the top-rated casino point-of-sale system with all integrations, comprehensive menu management, no hardware lock-in, and an array of solutions that include guest-empowered kiosk. Signature Systems, winner of the Innovation Award in the 2022 Gaming and Hospitality Industry Awards, is your one-stop shop for technology innovation. Learn more at ssipos.com. And like I said, if you're in the market, it's always good to give those Mike Nardi and those guys a call, and Scott Robbins probably help us a little bit with that as well. Without any further ado, Scott, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and VPS?
Sure. So I'm the CEO of Virtual Procurement Services. We were started in 2009. And our mission in 2009 was to help people recover money already spent in and around the data center, as well as reduce the cost of net new acquisition. Fast forward almost 15 years, and our mission hasn't changed. So our clients go out and negotiate the best deal they can for anything that has a plug or runs software. We have the ability to benchmark the price fully burdened throughout distribution, determine if there's savings or if it's been purchased, an opportunity to recover the money. And then my team goes out and does that on our client's behalf.
That's great. Now, um, obviously, there's a lot of savings to be had by getting involved with VPS. Uh, you know, we've talked about this before, and I've been in the industry a long time, as you pointed out to me,
We both have.
and we've never sat down and had a conversation about VPS. As so, it's something that I know our listeners are going to be interested in. Just why I haven't gotten involved, and I'll give you the short answer just to get it out there, is because I get calls like this all the time. I can save you money and I can negotiate this and I won't charge you anything. I'm going to take it, I'm taking it out of the savings I get. And, you know, and then it becomes this, take over my entire purchasing operation. So tell me, in this, why VPS and what's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not there's so much to that question or concern that it's not a single answer, right? So today, go back to the 1990s when we had agent models for IBM and we had, the consolidation in telco and all these gain share model savings companies popped up. Hey, I'm going to save you money and on your telephone bills. And what it looked like was I'm going to move you from a Baby Bell to 9X, right? People in IT in particular don't want to switch vendors to create savings. I'm a Cisco shop. I'm staying Cisco. Don't tell me how HP Aruba is going to save me money, right? So VPS doesn't do that. What VPS does is it looks at what you're actually already made a decision to acquire, determine if you're paying more than you need to, and if you are, go negotiate on your behalf. Now, the other problem with gain share model companies is, and we've talked about it, they say they've created savings, but when you look at it, their savings numbers were still worse than what you would have gotten had you negotiated the whole thing on your own. So in our case, there is no messing around with our baseline price. And baseline is when it comes to VPS, right? Your team goes out, negotiates the best possible deal you can. Invariably, they will say, there's no more skin left on this bone. We have gnawed it down to chips. And at that point, that's when we're benchmarking our savings, anything below that. Additionally, on the IT side, there's a little bit of insurance factor, right? Vendor relationships are important in IT in a different way than they are everywhere else. And people are concerned that involving VPS because of other competitors in the space is going to somehow negatively impact the relationship with the vendor. In our case, our contracts say, you don't have to pay us if you don't want to. I mean, there's a little bit longer T's and C's that go along with it, but our whole MSA is 2 pages, and that's what it says for all intents and purposes. You don't want to pay me, you don't have to. And that was put in back in 2009 in October. We launched in September because one of our first clients said, well, I'm concerned you're going to mess with my relationship. Invariably, when VPS is actually doing a good job, your frontline salespeople will actually make more money selling it to you at a lower price. And that's hard to imagine. You certainly can't just say that. And people aren't going to be like, oh, of course they are. Because to your point, you and I have been doing this since the sundial was our first technology purchase, right? Like, what could VPS possibly teach John Filippe about technology buying? And the truth of the matter is, it's a lot, because what you think goes into how pricing is determined for you and your organization is not what's actually going on behind the scenes. And so VPS's gain share model guarantee, plus a legacy and a list of customers, we've never been fired, right? 15 years, every customer we ever had is still under contract except one, and that's because of the receivership issue that happened at Bahamar, which is a much longer podcast, and we could have a lot of vendors get involved and employees get involved in that conversation. Right. So I think for us, the difference is, one, there is no question about whether our savings are real. And two, if the relationship is damaged, you don't have to pay us. And that's a pretty big differentiator. More importantly, we're the only one who developed a predictive analytics tool that allows us to benchmark the fully burdened cost throughout distribution. So for you, John Filippe, and all your peers, if you were to go to one of your directors before they send up something for signature, and you say, how do I know we're getting the best possible price? They're going to say, well, John, we sent it out to bid. We got a huge discount off of list price. It's well below our budget. The research organizations like Gartner and Giga and Meta and Forrester, they're all saying that our pricing is in the top 5% nationwide. And after we got that report, we got another 10% off. This has to be the best possible price. And the truth of the matter is, your pricing for just about every manufacturer and publisher you work with was rigged 6 to 9 to 12 months before you ever purchased it, right? You and I have talked about how deal registration operates, but the truth of the matter is that your pricing is predetermined well before it ever gets to your desk or your CFO's desk for signature. And so we could talk in more detail. I don't think we have to here, but the fact is, what we do is very different than anybody in the space, especially around technology.
It's funny. I love when I get the vendors negotiated down to this is it, and I've got them on a bid process, and they're all saying, yeah, this is it, and then one vendor comes just a bit lower than the other, and then I go back to the other vendor and say, listen, you're not gonna you didn't win because of price and such and such and such. And then you come back and say, well, I can cut the price more. And it's like, wait, I asked for your best price. And apparently there's, like you said, more meat on that bone, to bring it down. And it's common. It's common that we all deal with that.
It is. Like, so for example, when you go ask for your budget number, when you go to your team and say, okay, well, we're below budget. Well, where did you get your budget number from? Well, the only place your team can get their budget number from is the vendor who they end up sourcing it from. It's like going to a car dealer and saying, hey, how much is, the new Jeep Cherokee going to cost me in a year? Well, it's going to cost you, $60,000. Well, when it comes in at 58,000, it must be a good deal, and you're buying it from the same guy. And that's the beginning of that deal registration process, right? And deal registration, what we're talking about now, is when you're working through the reseller community. But remember, many of your deals are coming through manufacturers selling other people's stuff as a part of the solution. So in some of those deals, they're the manufacturer publisher, but in some cases, they're the reseller. And that process protects the reseller who knows about the deal first. And when you could say to the vendor, hey, I know about your deal registration or opportunity identification process, and I don't want you to do that, they'll come back and say, John, we would never compel you to do business with a vendor that you don't want to do business with. Unfortunately, their agreements with the channel are with their channel partners, not with you as the client. And so the fact is that they have to honor that. And it's actually an important part of the pricing process. It's a question of when you allow a deal to be registered that can impact your bottom line cost.
Well, I guess my next question would be, how much does involving like a VPS and yourself, and how much does that slow down the process?
Yeah, it's a great question. And just to give you some statistics from us from 2022, we don't have the 2023 first quarter numbers yet. Our average time to negotiate was about 21 days. And we end up negotiating about 43% of the deals that are shown to us for net new acquisition. On a recovery perspective, of the deals that were shown that meet our general requirements, it's about 38% that we end up negotiating for recovery. So the timeline typically about 20 to 21 days, but certain deals, I can use a deal that was done at one of the travel casinos with one of your friends. Very large software application. They spent I think it was about 9 months negotiating. I mean, this was really well negotiated. And that's the other piece. VPS's success doesn't mean somehow the client has done a bad job. The truth of the matter is there's only so much data available to you, and it's minimal when it comes to pricing perspective. In this case, and you can double check with the gentleman, and I think you may have already, right? Big software package, important for their marketing group. We took out 35% in 34 days, right? Sometimes that might be 60 days, but if there's not enough time, then we just don't negotiate it. There's no fee for us to at least evaluate it. And potentially that becomes an opportunity to recover money later on. So our engagement when we first start with a client, because the clients are typically resistant, especially at the director level and below, until they've seen some success. The average time is about 28, 32 days, but we try to keep it under 30 for the average deal.
Cool. Well, does VPS really help with things like supply chain? That's been the buzzword of the last, well, I shouldn't say buzzword, it's been the complaints of the last couple of years is the supply chain just dried up. And we're having so much trouble getting product now in a time when it's supposed to be recovering.
Yeah, so keep in mind that, our other large vertical outside of hospitality and gaming is on the healthcare side, and nobody's seen a supply chain squeeze like healthcare. And beginning with the pandemic, and really just prior to the pandemic, there were already some pretty major issues there. The truth of the matter is today, where you are right now, outside of a couple of products that require very specific chips, you should not be having a supply chain issue. We have not had any substantive supply chain issues for our clients in the last quarter and a half, if not 2 full quarters. There are a couple of chips that really don't exist. And when that happens, we're quick to tell you that's a real one. But the other ones aren't real. It's just added pressure to get you to move your deal up into their timeline to address their quarters. I mean, if you look at hospitality, most of the timelines that are set aren't really set by the client. They're set by the vendor.
So it's not a priority issue or something, because that's what I always, like you said, sometimes they push you into a priority. Oh, we got to get this done because we're going to lose the supply and do that.
No. There are some chipsets. I mean, there are actually specific printers right now that have been delayed for about 3 years, right? If you want a specific manufacturer that requires this one chip, you could be waiting 8 or 9 months. But server, storage, networking gear, infrastructure layer software, especially on the software side, you got to be kidding, right? It's all cloud-based today. We just haven't seen that. And in healthcare, we haven't seen it either, right? Even things like linear accelerators, thoracic surgery equipment, other stuff that we're engaged with. And on the construction side, as you know, we do a lot of work on the construction and facility side. There is zero supply chain issue today.
What about things like I'm tribal, so at least now. So getting federal, we get federal discounts already, and government discounts. Do you negotiate that type of thing even further down, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just talk about GSA contracts, federal subsidies, federal government contracts. Across the tribal environment, each one is really unique based on the manufacturer publisher that you're dealing with. So you need to be aware of that. But John, would you let the federal government or the state of California where you live negotiate pricing for anything you're buying personally?
Oh God, no.
Right. So like when I hear that,
we're
it's
buying
like
fuel at minibar prices right now.
right. So let's talk about what that looks like. Take a manufacturer. I'm not going to name one. They have a part number A1 with a description that says black widget, and its list price is $100, and you're going to get it for 80. And anybody who buys it for less than 80, they have to make up the difference to your tribe. They also part number A2, black widget, for a list price of $60. Now, interestingly enough, your discount on that part is 0, but you can still get it for $60. And so the GSA has one part number, the private enterprise has the second part number, and outside of some very specific deals and publisher in particular, you should never buy off a GSA or a federal contract. You will always get a better price elsewhere.
That's interesting. I never even heard that.
Well, why don't you look at, so one of the things you can do is look at the GSA enforcement division and, this public record. There are not a lot of people in there to enforce these rules. And more importantly, when they get caught, the penalty isn't that much. I think the biggest one was NetApp for about $11 million. I actually don't remember the number that they were penalized back in 2012-13 timeline. But compared to what they made, their penalty was well worth
it. It's that whole bean counter thing with the cars, we could fix it for X, but
very much so. And unfortunately, there's no place to go outside of VPS that can actually match up all that documentation. I mean, because we work in multiple verticals, it's interesting to see, Microsoft, right? A lot of people use Microsoft. Very different pricing structure for a university healthcare system than they have for your tribe. And they're both under federal contracts. Now, all legal in Microsoft, I'll use that as an example. Great pricing when it comes to a university healthcare system to meet those requirements, pretty significant. You're probably not going to. But there are others that do it very differently. And 99% of the time, you should not buy off of a GSA contract. And if you're being supported by the SLED team, run, don't walk.
Okay. Well, if I walk in and I say, okay, Scott, listen, we need VPS to look at this for us. Here's what I'm getting on my GSA contract. Here's my bids. Here's whatever.
Yep.
Throw it out there. And your team comes in, takes a
Within
look.
24 hours, you'll have a report of if there's savings and how long it will take to achieve those savings. There may be a conversation with you. Hey, John, this is for, 10 APs. Looks like it might be a part of a bigger purchase. What's going on here? Oh, we just bought $1.5 million worth of this stuff to build a new tower, for example. So this is kind of just some extra stuff I want around. So we may have a 5 or 10 minute conversation, and then you'll know exactly how much and how long it will take. And you make a decision whether we should negotiate it or not.
Cool. So I come in, I sign a 2-page MSA, and you come and say, it's no problem. Here's some things. It says on the MSA, listen, you don't pay us unless we find you some savings and you want to pay us. And then we go from there, and everybody's happy.
Yep. And in 15 years, or almost 15 years, only Baha Mar left to be hanging. And even that is much more complicated because we still work for the old ownership group, right? So even that, Tom Dunlap has been a very good friend and a great mentor to me. So
Baha Mar was a whole different story.
But here in the US, our bills get paid because our savings are real and they're very easy to benchmark. And the relationships actually get better with the client and the sales organizations that they're working with when our team is involved.
Oh, great. Well, where do I sign up? Send me my contract.
Look, I think we're done with the podcast. I'm done. That sounds perfect. Look, the truth of the matter, John, is you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
I've been a part of Gaming and Leisure, which is it's actually the only organization we support from a marketing perspective because of the people that are involved. The conversations that take place in October, every October, are second to none from an industry standpoint, right? We've been a part of those conversations. And as you can see, we don't have a sales organization. I don't have salespeople show up. Nobody's ever called you and said, golly gee, heck, I think you wanted one of the gift cards that we gave you a few years ago. And we never heard from you. Right?
I think I did, actually.
Right? So, the truth of the matter is we're not a sales organization. What happens in gaming, and I think right now it's a really important time for you folks, it's cyclical. At some point, you're going to need to save money. And depending on the region and where you are, look at the San Diego casinos in that marketplace, what's happened over the last 3 years and the very specific pressures that they have. But the truth of the matter is, as the online gaming business is growing, saving money at the property level is about to become very, very important. And IT, outside of how it supports gaming, is not always the most respected or valued department within these properties.
What do you say? I'm just kidding.
Right?
I'm just kidding.
It's true. And so saving money in this area right now, based on what we're looking at in the economic future here for the grinders and for the regular people, it looks like, 24 months from now may not be as happy right now as we were, 20 months ago, right? Or, where we are today. And so at some point, properties start to matter. So our job is just to let them know that we're here. We are very different, right? So the other competitors that are out there today, they don't have analytics tool. What they have is some former sales guy who had a couple of accounts who figures, I know how to buy X, I sold it, let me go save money. And unfortunately, those programs and promotions and plans, they change not just on a quarterly basis, but on a daily basis. Michael Dell changed the entire IT community by creating a supply on demand economy. And so that idea of how it's benchmarked to pricing, the price of a piece of RAM today, very different than it was 4 days ago. And so there just doesn't exist another organization that's been able to manage to capture that data and then be able to deploy it to help create those savings, right? So for us, we don't really have competitors in this space. You have some of those bigger consultancies that say, hey, we're going to go save you a bunch of money. And they create a beautiful board presentation and it's $600,000. And what they come back to is, go invest in marketing and, fire some people. Like that's not really what we do. We are very transactionally oriented and we don't negotiate everything. One of our big casinos, one of my favorite stories to tell is I saved a ton of money with a network vendor, right? It was somebody reselling network. I get a call from the CEO who, very close with, wasn't that close at that time. And he said, what are you doing? I said, well, look, the CIO needs to save money. I negotiate. Everybody's happy. He said, they're about to be my marketing partner in a very big 20-year transaction. You need to stop. You need to pay what they were originally going to charge you because politically it was a bad move. And in gaming, becoming a part of the culture is my team's job. Understand what your PO process looks like. Understand what's tribal, what's gaming, when there's overlap and when there's not. And I think working with an organization that I had a conversation today with one of our clients that the government side was doing a software deal, got brought over because it affects part of the commercial side. And when we talked through, it wasn't the right deal for us to negotiate, despite there being $200,000 or $300,000 of savings, right? And so you want a partner who really is a partner that has that kind of insight into the organization, I think. I certainly hope.
Well, Scott, it's been great talking to you. This was a fantastic podcast. I learned a whole lot, and we're going to be talking again. Trust me on that.
I certainly hope so.
And I'm sure you're after some people see this, you're going to be getting a lot of calls. So we'll get as soon as this is out there. Hopefully we'll get a lot of interest in watching it. And great having you on board. This is John Cash Filippe signing off for another Gaming and Leisure Voice with Scott Robbins of EPS.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.